What if the reason your income hasn't moved in years has nothing to do with talent, luck, or hard work, and everything to do with the skills you were never taught? The market doesn't reward effort, it rewards mastery. You've probably noticed something strange in the last few years. Some people with average resumes are suddenly pulling ahead, while others who work harder, stay later, and do everything right barely move an inch. It feels unfair until you realize what's actually happening beneath the surface. The economy has shifted into a skill based marketplace, but most people are still operating on an effort based mindset. My name is Alex, and I study the skills that actually move your income. Not the trends, not the hype, but the fundamentals that make people financially unstoppable. If that's the kind of clarity you want more of, feel free to subscribe so you never miss a breakdown. Here's the question almost no one asks. Why do a small group of people keep rising no matter how the economy changes while most people stay stuck? The answer is simpler than you think. Today, we're diving into the 11 timeless business skills that quietly print money in any market and how mastery, not effort, sets you apart. Skill number 1, strategy, choosing the right game. When most people talk about strategy, what they really mean is an idea. I'll start a cafe. I'll build an app. I'll sell clothing. Those are not strategies, those are choices. And choices without strategy are just hopes with a price tag attached. Real strategy starts with a far more important question. What game am I actually trying to win? Because the game you choose matters more than how hard you play it. Someone playing the right game with average effort often beats someone playing the wrong game with incredible effort. That's why strategy sits at the top of this list. It's leverage before action. A perfect example is Netflix. They didn't cling to DVDs just because the idea was working. They stepped back and looked at the direction the entire world was moving. Internet speeds were rising. On-demand consumption was exploding. So they pivoted into streaming long before it was obvious. And when every competitor rushed into streaming years later, Netflix had already played the next card: original content. That is strategy in its pure form, not reacting to the present, but positioning yourself for the future. Strategy is the skill of choosing the right market, the right timing, and the right angle of attack so your effort compounds instead of evaporates. The average person plans what to do. Skilled operators plan where the opportunity will be by the time the work pays off. One is guessing, the other is positioning. And here's the part most people miss. A bad strategy cannot be rescued by hard work. You can't outgrind a declining market. You can't out-hustle bad economics. You can't work your way through a business model that was flawed from day one. Strategy is what prevents wasted years, wasted money, and wasted effort. It's the difference between rowing harder and turning the boat so the current finally works in your favor. Once you build this skill, every other ability you learn becomes more valuable because now you're playing the right game. Skill number 2, resource allocation, putting time and money where it compounds. If strategy chooses the right game, resource allocation decides how you actually win it. And this might be the most misunderstood skill in business because it doesn't look dramatic, it doesn't look creative, it doesn't even look busy. But behind every company that grows for decades, you'll find someone quietly deciding what to fund, what to delay, and what to walk away from entirely. At its core, resource allocation is the ability to direct money, time, talent, and attention toward the opportunities with the highest long-term payoff. Most people don't do this. They treat every project as equally important. They spread themselves thin. They invest in what feels urgent instead of what truly matters. And over time, all of that scattering creates a fog. Nothing grows because everything gets only a fraction of the energy it needs. Jeff Bezos understood this better than almost anyone. In the early days of Amazon, the online store was already a success. Bezos could have poured everything into expanding retail. But he saw something hidden in the company's internal tools, the early foundations of cloud computing. So he funneled resources into a small, almost invisible project called Amazon Web Services. Today, AWS is the most profitable division in the entire company. It wasn't the obvious move. It wasn't a safe move. But it was the right move. Because resource allocation is ultimately the skill of betting on potential, not comfort. The average operator asks, "What do I have energy for today?" Skilled operators ask, "What will matter 5 years from now if I invest in it now?" And here's the real power of this skill. Saying no becomes a strategic advantage. You stop chasing every interesting idea. You stop reacting to noise. You stop pouring time into projects that make you feel productive but move nothing forward. Resource allocation is how small advantages turn into massive outcomes. It's not about doing more, it's about feeding the few things that will eventually feed everything else. Skill number 3, sales, capturing value consistently. If strategy chooses the game and resource allocation decides where to place your energy, sales is the moment everything becomes real. It's the bridge between providing value and getting paid for it. And yet, sales is the one skill most people avoid because the only image they have is a pushy salesperson trying to pressure someone into buying something they don't want. But elite sales have nothing to do with pressure. In fact, great sales rarely feels like selling at all. It feels like clarity. It feels like relief. It feels like someone finally understands what you've been trying to solve on your own for months. At its heart, sales is simply the skill of helping another person make the right decision. That's it. When you approach it this way, the entire dynamic changes. You're not trying to convince, they're trying to understand. You're not pushing, they're evaluating. You're not manipulating, you're guiding. The best businesses in the world don't sell hard. They design offers that feel like natural answers to real problems. And because the problem is real, the decision becomes easy. Think about the last time you paid for something that genuinely solved a frustration. You didn't feel pressured. You felt grateful. You weren't buying an object, you were buying the removal of a headache. That's the level of alignment elite sales creates. But here's the part. Most people never realize sales begins long before the conversation. It starts with understanding your market so deeply that you can articulate their problem better than they can. It starts with positioning your product in a way that makes the next step feel obvious. And it starts with delivering enough trust that the person on the other side believes your recommendation is in their best interest. When you master sales, your effort stops leaking. The value you create is the value you capture. And once you can consistently convert attention into revenue, every other skill you learn becomes exponentially more powerful, because now you have the engine that keeps the entire system alive. Skill number 4, innovation. Most people hear the word innovation and immediately think of invention, something groundbreaking, never before seen, a moment of pure genius. But in the real world, innovation is usually much simpler and far more practical. It's the skill of taking something that already works and making it so much better that everything else feels outdated the moment people touch it. Apple is the classic example. They didn't invent the MP3 player, the smartphone, or the tablet. Those categories existed long before Apple stepped in. What they did was elevate the experience until the competition stopped feeling competitive. The iPhone wasn't the first smartphone. It was simply the first one that felt like the future. That's innovation in its most powerful form, turning good enough into nothing else compares. The reason this skill matters so much is because innovation creates separation. You're not trying to be 1% better than the market, you're trying to be unmistakably better. When users try your product and suddenly everything else feels clunky or slow or confusing, you've won the psychological battle that leads to loyalty, repeat customers, and pricing power. Here's the mistake average operators make. They chase novelty instead of usefulness. They invest years into building things nobody asks for. True innovation works in the opposite direction. It listens first. It studies real frustrations. It pays attention to what people actually do, not what they say they want. Then it removes friction, simplifies the process, and elevates the experience. Innovation is not about being clever, it's about being clear. It's about understanding that people reward anything that makes their life easier, faster, or more enjoyable. And here's the part that compounds. Once you innovate once, people expect it from you again. That expectation becomes leverage. It forces you to improve, refine, and reinvent on a rhythm the market can't keep up with. Innovation doesn't demand brilliance. It demands curiosity and discipline. When you master those, you don't need to create the next big thing. You just need to make the current thing undeniably better. Skill number 5, branding, the emotional moat you can't copy. Branding is a skill most people think they understand, until they try to build one. They imagine logos, colors, slogans, maybe a quirky tagline, but that isn't branding. That's decoration. Real branding is something deeper, quieter, and infinitely more powerful. It's the emotional reputation your business earns through every experience you create. Think about Apple. Their dominance isn't just about technology. Competitors often match or exceed their hardware specs. What those competitors cannot replicate is the feeling of being an Apple customer. Everything, from the minimalist ads to the polished stores to the helpful staff to the satisfying unboxing moment, signals quality, intention, and ease. You're not buying a product, you're buying an experience, and that experience becomes a story you remember. That's branding. And the reason it's such a valuable skill is because branding builds something money can't buy. Trust. Trust shortens sales cycles. Trust justifies higher prices. Trust keeps people from leaving even when alternatives are cheaper. When you build a brand with emotional resonance, your product stops being a commodity and becomes part of someone's identity. The average operator focuses on transactions. Skilled operators focus on impressions, because impressions compound. A smooth onboarding experience, a handwritten note, a clean design, a reliable customer support interaction. Each of these moments becomes part of the story people tell themselves about your brand. And here's the part most people miss. Branding isn't about standing out, it's about standing for something. It's the consistency of your values expressed through every touch point. When people know what to expect from you, and you deliver it over and over, you create a loyalty moat that competitors can't cross. A strong brand earns attention without shouting. It earns loyalty without begging. It earns pricing power without justification. And in a world full of noise, the businesses with the clearest identity become magnetic. Branding is the skill that turns just a product into a preferred choice. Once you master it, your market stops comparing you and starts choosing you. Skill number 6, leadership. Leadership is one of those skills everyone thinks they understand until they're put in charge. Most people assume leadership means authority, direction, and control. But the truth is far less dramatic and far more important. Leadership is the ability to shape an environment where people do their best work consistently, not out of fear, but out of shared purpose. Look at Microsoft before Satya Nadella took over. It was a company packed with brilliant talent, yet its culture had become rigid, political, and internally competitive. Teams guarded information, avoided risks, and treated mistakes like career-ending events. That kind of culture kills innovation long before any competitor does. When Nadella stepped in, he didn't start by demanding performance. He started by reshaping the mindset of the entire organization from a know-it-all culture to a learn-it-all culture. Employees were encouraged to experiment. Managers were trained to coach rather than criticize. Curiosity became a value, not a liability, and almost overnight, Microsoft rediscovered its momentum. That's leadership, creating conditions where people can think clearly, act boldly, and feel supported enough to take smart risks. It's less about giving orders and more about removing friction. It's not about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about being the calmest, clearest, and most consistent. Average leaders rely on pressure. Exceptional leaders rely on alignment. They make sure everyone understands the mission, the priorities, and the standards. They communicate with clarity. They listen with patience. They model the behavior they expect from the team. And as a result, people don't just execute, they contribute. And here's the real power of leadership. It compounds. When you build an environment where people grow, your business grows with them. When you build trust, you gain speed. When you remove fear, you unlock creativity. Suddenly, you're not carrying the entire operation on your back. Your people are pushing it forward with you. Leadership isn't about being in charge. It's about being responsible for the culture that produces results. When you master that, your team becomes a force multiplier and your business moves with a strength no individual could ever create alone. Skill number 7, system design. If leadership develops people, system design protects them from chaos. Most businesses don't fail because the product is bad or the team isn't talented. They fail because the daily operations slowly collapse under their own weight. Tasks get repeated. Communication turns messy. Small errors pile up until they become expensive problems. And before anyone realizes what happened, the business is spending more time fixing issues than creating value. That's why system design is such an important skill. It's the ability to create predictable, repeatable processes that allow your business to grow without losing stability. Think of it like building a railway. Once the tracks are laid correctly, the train can move faster, safer, and farther with almost the same amount of effort. McDonald's is the gold standard here. At its core, it's a simple burger operation, but behind those counters is one of the most sophisticated systems ever built. Every movement in the kitchen, every step in the cooking process, every interaction with the customer is mapped, optimized, and repeatable. You could walk into a McDonald's in Tokyo or Toronto, and the experience would feel almost identical. That consistency is not an accident, it's system design. The average operator tries to scale by working harder. Skilled operators scale by building systems that work even when they're not in the room. Systems reduce mistakes. Systems increase speed. Systems protect quality. And most importantly, systems free your mind from operational clutter so you can focus on strategy, innovation, and growth. Here's the part. Nobody tells you systems don't make a business rigid, they make it flexible. When you have solid processes, you can improve them. When everything is improvised, improvement is impossible because nothing is stable enough to measure. System design is invisible when it works and painfully obvious when it doesn't. But once you master it, you stop putting out fires and start building something that can expand without breaking. That's when your business shifts from surviving to scaling. Skill number 8, negotiation, big wins in single conversations. Negotiation is one of those skills people tend to underestimate because it doesn't happen every day. But when it does happen, a single negotiation can change the trajectory of an entire business. It can save millions, unlock opportunities, or secure partnerships that would have been impossible otherwise. In many ways, negotiation is the quiet lever that multiplies everything else you've built. The perfect example is SpaceX. When Elon Musk began building rockets, he discovered that aerospace suppliers were charging staggering prices the government had accepted for decades. Instead of paying those standard rates, Musk negotiated aggressively, cutting costs by massive margins. Those savings weren't small efficiencies, they were survival. They gave SpaceX the runway to innovate. But negotiation didn't stop on the supply side. Musk also had to win contracts with NASA and the US government, institutions that had never entrusted a private company with this level of responsibility. Convincing them required more than technical brilliance. It required strategic framing, rapport, trust building, and the ability to shift someone's perception of risk. That's negotiation at its highest level. Most people think negotiation is about getting a good price. Skilled operators understand it's about shaping the entire context of a deal. Terms, expectations, timelines, and long-term value. It's not a battle, it's a structured conversation designed to find agreement that benefits both sides. Here's what separates average negotiators from exceptional ones. Average negotiators react, they respond emotionally, they defend positions. Exceptional negotiators stay curious, they ask better questions, they uncover the other party's real constraints and motivations. They solve for the whole equation, not just the number on the page. And here's the real insight. Negotiation is not about winning today. It's about creating conditions that allow you to keep winning tomorrow. A negotiation that damages trust isn't a win. It's a short-term gain with long-term costs. When you master negotiation, you stop leaving value on the table. You stop accepting terms by default. And you start shaping your business future intentionally, one conversation at a time. Skill number 9. Networking. The people who multiply your capabilities. If strategy chooses the game and systems keep it running, networking determines how fast you can move inside that game. Most people think networking is about shaking hands, exchanging LinkedIn messages, or pretending to be extroverted at events they don't want to attend. But real networking, the kind that actually changes a business, is something very different. Networking is the skill of building meaningful relationships with people who can solve problems you can't solve alone. It's about surrounding yourself with thinkers, builders, mentors, and operators who make you better simply by being in the room. In business, You will inevitably hit challenges you don't have the experience, knowledge, or resources to overcome. The question isn't whether those challenges come. The question is who you can call when they do. Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, illustrates this better than almost anyone. People who know him often say, if you dropped him on a deserted island, he'd be running the place in a month. It's not a joke. It's a reflection of his ability to gather exceptional people wherever he goes. OpenAI didn't become OpenAI because of one idea. It became OpenAI because Sam built a network of world-class talent who wanted to build something groundbreaking together. Average operators try to do everything themselves. Skilled operators build ecosystems. They understand that leverage often comes from people, not tools. A single introduction can speed up a process that would have taken months. A conversation with the right expert can prevent a costly mistake. A collaborator with proven strengths can unlock growth you wouldn't reach alone. And here's the key insight. Networking isn't about collecting contacts. It's about creating trust. Trust comes from showing up consistently, adding value without keeping score, and building relationships before you need them. When you operate that way, opportunities start finding you. People think you're lucky, but it's not luck. It's accumulated goodwill returning with interest. Networking is the skill that accelerates every other skill. When you master it, you stop moving through the world as one person and start moving as a connected system of capabilities far larger than yourself. Skill number 10. Timing, making the move when the world is ready. Timing is one of the strangest skills in business because you can't see it directly. You only see the results. Two people can have the exact same idea, the same vision, even the same strategy, but one becomes a global success and the other disappears quietly. The difference isn't intelligence or effort, it's timing. Vine is the perfect example. They pioneered short-form vertical video long before it became a global obsession. The creators loved it, users loved it, the idea was brilliant. But the world wasn't ready. Smartphones weren't powerful enough, internet speeds weren't fast enough, and the creator ecosystem wasn't developed enough to sustain the platform. Vine wasn't wrong, it was early. Years later, TikTok launched with nearly the same concept, but at the perfect moment. Phones had better cameras, internet connections were fast and cheap. Millions of creators were already producing video content daily. The conditions were finally aligned, and because the timing was right, the idea exploded. That's the essence of timing. Understanding not just what the world wants, but when the world is ready to receive it. Average operators focus on execution alone. Skilled operators watch the environment, the technology curve, consumer behavior, cultural shifts, and market readiness. They don't just ask, is this a good idea? They ask, is the ecosystem mature enough for this idea to thrive? Timing isn't about waiting, it's about preparing. When you understand timing, you build patiently, test quietly, and move decisively when conditions align. You stop forcing outcomes and start aligning with momentum. And when momentum is on your side, even small efforts carry you farther. Here's what makes timing so powerful. The right move at the right moment can succeed with half the effort. The right move at the wrong moment can fail, even with perfect execution. Timing amplifies or erases your work. Master this skill and you stop trying to push the world. Instead, you let the world pull your idea forward the moment it's ready. Skill number 11. Decision-making. The foundation that compounds everything. Decision-making is the invisible skill that holds every other skill together. Strategy, sales, innovation, none of them matter if you consistently choose the wrong paths, the wrong priorities, or the wrong risks. In business, your decisions are the levers that move everything else. Pull the right ones, and progress accelerates. Pull the wrong ones, and even the best strategy stalls. What makes decision-making so powerful is that it compounds. A single good decision rarely changes your life, but a decade of mostly good decisions creates a trajectory that looks like luck from the outside. Warren Buffett understood this better than almost anyone. His secret wasn't complexity, it was clarity. He avoided irreversible mistakes, waited for high-quality opportunities, and made decisions slowly, deliberately, and with full awareness of the downside. Most people make decisions reactively. They choose based on urgency, fear, or convenience. Skilled operators do the opposite. They pause. They analyze. They separate noise from information. They ask, what matters long term? They know that saying yes is easy, but saying no is often the decision that preserves time, resources, and focus. A strong decision-making process protects you from your own blind spots. It forces you to weigh consequences, question assumptions, and think probabilistically instead of emotionally. It's less about being right every time and more about avoiding outcomes that could take you off the board entirely. And here's the insight most people overlook. In many cases, the most profitable decision is the one you don't make, the investment you don't chase, the partnership you don't force, the market you don't enter too early. Good decision-making isn't just about choosing well. It's about eliminating the options that quietly drain your future potential. When you master this skill, everything in your business sharpens. Your strategy becomes clearer. Your resource allocation becomes more effective. Your team gains direction. The noise fades and the signal strengthens. Decision-making is the operating system beneath every other ability. Improve it, and every skill we've covered increases in value. Ignore it, and even great skills struggle to take you where you want to go. Key takeaways. When you look across all 11 skills, a simple truth comes into focus. Your income doesn't rise because you work harder. It rises because you upgrade the quality of the skills you rely on. Effort has limits, mastery doesn't. And the people who consistently move ahead in any economy have quietly shifted from an effort-based life to a skill-based one. Strategy helps you choose the right game. Resource allocation helps you invest in what truly matters. Sales, branding, and innovation help you capture and keep value. Leadership and system design give your business stability. Negotiation, networking, and timing unlock leverage. And decision-making ties it all together so every choice compounds. None of these skills are nice to have. They're the architecture of a career or business that grows stronger with time. You don't need to master all 11 at once. You just need to choose one, deepen it, and let that momentum spill into the next. Because the real takeaway is this: the market rewards sharp skills, not busy calendars. Once you start building the abilities that actually move your income, the entire trajectory of your work and your wealth begins to change.